This is the Alto de Castillo. Oh dear, a little bit of a problem. Somebody already off Vicchioso, who's well up in the GC, having a bit of a problem, and he won't want to be down the back. It's a very winding, nasty little climb, this, and really digging in hard with some cobblestones and there. And the Lotto and Quickstep boys at the front just trying to control things, Sean.
Yes, well, they rode very hard into the climb. We see the Quick-Step riders really charged into the bottom, and we see, you know, the cobblestones on it for a bit. And it's important to stay up front, of course, at this stage of the race. You know, when you get to the top, as we said, around 12 kilometres to the finish, any of the favourites, they really have to stay up in the top 25 riders here. And we see Vicchioso they're having problems. That's not a thing what he wants at all, because to move back to the bunch now, there'll be a lot of riders losing contact, leaving gaps. So for him, it's going to be a hard chase to get up to the front before they start the descent. And of course then on the descent it's, you know, difficult to make up time if there's a lot of riders on the descent to get by everybody, so you're not the position he would like to be in at all.
Good climber, this guy, Samuel Sanchez up at the head of everything, just taking a little bit, trying to get across to the other guys and past them. The guy right at the back, Niels Schoenemann from the Netherlands, you just saw a shot of him. Sanchez has had a bit of a tough time in the last 12 months, showed some very, very great promise in races like Tour of the Basque Country and so on. Now up by himself, he's trying to be, a couple of riders trying to bridge the gap, but Euskaltel needs somebody to show something today, because the news that came over Race Radio about a half an hour before we went on air is that Iban Mayo, who was at 8:26 overall, has abandoned today, and they're putting all their eggs in one basket, that being the Aitor Gonzalez basket. Lorenzetto from the Vacanza and, surprise, surprise, Jose Enrique Gutierrez from Phonak have also pulled out today. It's beautiful. Look at this arc. It's absolutely glorious town here.
And we can see Sanchez, actually, he's riding right on the side here. We can see he's riding on that little bit of a pavement just beside the footpath, just to get off the cobblestones. It makes it that fraction bit easier to do that on the climb. But quite a long section of cobbles here. I didn't expect it to be long. Normally on the bottom of the climb leading out of the town you would have it for a short bit, but it's continuing on for quite a long time here.
Carlos Garcia Quesada has joined Samuel Sanchez, and that is Joaquim Rodriguez, I think, from Sonia Deval as well. Now Rodriguez, a danger man. You can see he's wearing the climber's jersey, which is why he's not instantly recognizable as a Sonia Deval rider. Very, very good climber indeed, and he's not very far down on GC either. Some is Joaquim Rodriguez. He's flying fourth overall at only 41 seconds. This is a bit dangerous for Bradley McGee. If he can get away here, he wants to take the points, of course, in the climber's jersey, but if he can get away here and bridge the gap, Sean, it's not very far, as you say, down the other side. Difficult times for Bradley McGee, and we're not quite sure where he is in this chasing peloton.
Yes, and of course Rodriguez, as I said, you know, coming into this tour, certainly, you know, and even at this moment, he wouldn't be one of the big favourites to do a lot in the general classement. And when he gets away like this, you know, they're not going to get overactive or overexcited or pulling him back the other favourites. So an opportunity for him, you know, to get away, pull out a nice advantage on the climb here, get over the top, and, you know, go for the descent. And if he can do that, well, you know, it's possible that he could cause problems for McGee in the general classement.
He's a good all-round rider, good climber, not a super climber, a superstar climber, but he's a good all-rounder. Wearing the Mountains classification jersey at the moment, Joaquim Rodriguez, you can see there, fourth on general classification at 41 seconds. This is a nasty little climb, isn't it? There's the top, but it is rather nasty, funneling through that very, very narrow village streets, town streets. And there we are, Alto de Castillo. See what the gap is now. Back to the main bunch. Well, they're all strung out, and we'll have to see where McGee is within that. You can't see the gold jersey from there, but it's going to be about, assuming he's climbing well, it's going to be at least 10 seconds. Oh, Carlos Garcia Quesada on the front. There are two Garcia Quesadas in the Comunitat Valenciana squad under the directorship of Vincenti Belda, Adolfo and Carlos Well, it's Carlos who's up here today, and a very handy man to send away. I wonder what it's going to be like in the later stages, Sean. Vincenti Belda has a real philosophy of sending a rider to attack all the time. Bang, 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 one rider after another. And they're going to cause problems, aren't they, for the big teams? They're always on the attack.
Yes, well, we've seen that over the years. You know, they haven't got a lot of great riders, but he always seems to, you know, pull out a rider, and he's done it a few times where he pulled out a great one and won the Tour of Spain. But not only that, you know, he fields a good team every year, and you know, with the budget he has got, he's caused problems for the other teams. Well, and took, you know, some of the glory as well. Took some great stage victories, and I think this year again we will see him doing something like that. At least taking a number of stage victories would be possible for him.
Well, look at this. It's not just Joaquim Rodriguez who's gone away, but number one on the back there is Roberto Heras from Liberty Seguros, and also that is, I think that is Carlos Sastre at the front. There we go, Sastre, Rodriguez, Bettini in there. Well, it says Adolfo Garcia Quesada now. Floyd Landis and Roberto Heras all shoveling down the other side of this Alto de Castillo together, not wanting to let any of these guys get away, and it was Joaquin Rodriguez who really forced the pace along, and it's either one of the Garcia Quesadas. But interesting to see. I think it was Sastre who went on the chase, and Roberto Heras has been forced to go with him. So a little group of about 12 or 13 riders at the front now, chasing after any of the remaining breakaway riders. Nice to see Paolo Bettini up there. We were talking about him yesterday as probably riding into form. There could be a couple of stages where he could get away and do something. Maybe if he could have got over a little bit, get over a little bit faster ahead of the sprinters today, maybe it could be his stage today. Who knows?
Yes, well, certainly, you know, Bettini, he's the one in a small group of, you know, 10, 15 riders. The main sprinters, the big sprinters, would not be there normally. So he's, you know, a perfect position for him to take a stage, because we've seen him in the Giro doing that. And even in the bunch sprints, of course, in the Giro he won stages. But in a small group like this, if he could, you know, stay away to the finish, he's definitely in a great position to take a stage victory.
Well, the news coming over Race Radio about Iban Mayo. Whoa, dear. Before we go to that, somebody's had a crash on the downslope. That's not nice going. That's Leonardo Piepoli. You can tell him by his balding pate. Well, Piepoli crashing on the way down. That's not nice for him. Let's hope I think he's probably just touched somebody or got a bit too close to somebody, and the two of them have tumbled, and Piepoli's come off the worst there. Let's hope there's nothing nasty with him. I don't think so. It didn't seem to be that he was in any particular trouble, and the bike looked to be okay. Obviously descending pretty quickly, Sean, to try and catch up with some of the other guys ahead of him.
Yes, well, he seemed to be not too happy with somebody in front. Acevedo seemed to be was the one that came up there, you know, maybe somebody made a wrong movement, a wrong line going into the corner. He seemed to be signalling down the road at somebody, waving his arm. He wasn't happy with the situation.
Well, that little bit of drama over. A group of about 35-40 riders now on the descent have come together. Iban Mayo's manager, or director sportif, Julien Rospe, saying that Iban Mayo's problems the same as he had in the Tour de France. He's got back pains, and they go down into his legs, trapped nerve somewhere, and his morale is super low, and he's decided not to go on anymore. Well, you have to feel for poor old Iban Mayo. He's just had a woefully bad season and wasn't too happy last year either. It's all slowed down tremendous amount. Sorry about the motorcycle pictures showing you bits of tarmac rather than riders. Bit difficult to work out who is who and who's doing what when they're showing us the edge of the pavement. Not such a great shot, is it, Sean? I like the Armco barrier, though. They painted it a nice subtle green, I think. The leading group then, about 35 riders, all coming together. Nobody really attacking out of it, and all staying pretty much together at the moment.
We can see the Liberty riders are taking control of this here, a number of them on the front. And of course, when we see that group earlier on, it was a smaller group with Heras and Bettini, Sastre. There will be definitely a reaction from the other big favourites when Heras goes away like this, and Sastre, of course, they have to make a move as well. Anybody's thinking about the general, they can't allow those, and a lot of riders in this first group at the moment. But the Liberty guys, are really pulling along here, so they must have some interest in this one. Maybe some of the other favourites have actually missed this move, and they are just trying to keep the pace, really high at the front.
Well, one of the Euskaltel riders coming out on the attack again. I hope that when they finish today's stage, they give this cameraman a quick lesson in hanging off the back of a motorcycle. It's almost impossible for us to tell you who is who, but we can say that Heras was in the attack and others reacting. Well, Euskaltel trying to get away. I think 8 kilometers is a little bit, so you're going to have to be pretty much a demon descender if you're trying to... Is that... I can't tell on earth who that is. I'm very sorry. Is that Sanchez again coming out of there? My apologies to the viewers for the quality of this picture. I'm not known for holding back when it comes to the quality of pictures, having spent years and years in production myself, and wielded a camera for Channel 4 and off the back of a motorcycle as well, and I can tell you that's rubbish.
It looks like Lysenka.
A man who was absolutely hanging yesterday, really hanging over 232 kilometers. If that is Lysenka, he's recovered pretty well overnight and trying to ride away from the Liberty guys. They're not going to be too worried, I don't think, about this man getting away. Samuel Sanchez again. Sanchez, well, he chanced his arm on the attack up the Alto de Castillo and was caught by Joaquim Rodriguez. He's a pretty handy little rider, this guy, Samuel Sanchez. He didn't have a particularly good year last year, but getting back into some sort of form. I was very, very impressed with him in the Tour of the Basque Country a couple of years ago, and also in the Tour of Burgos. Rode very well indeed as a supporting role, and would always give it a dig and attack in the mountains. Well, Juan Mercado as well. He's a useful man to have in that group, although not a sprinter. But remember, he won a stage of the Tour de France 2 years ago, out pacing Vicente Garcia Costa, just by sticking in the wheel of Garcia Costa. And I wonder whether he's thinking of doing a similar thing today, Sean, when they get down off the mountain, because Sanchez, although he's not as strong as Garcia Costa, Mercado could just sit in there if Sanchez is capable of staying away and just nip out afterwards. Good all-round rider, Mercado.
Yes, well, it's worth having a go on for a rider like Mercado, if he can just get away with Sanchez here and maybe share some of the work as well, on the last number of kilometres in. But it's going to be difficult for them because the group behind is quite big, and there's quite a lot of riders prepared to chase there, and I think it's only a matter of time before they will be pulled back by this what's left of the bunch at the moment.
Well, Sanchez will be hoping to get a victory this year. He's not had a UCI victory this year. He took 3 last year for Euskaltel. But that was his best year, really. I mean, he's never taken a victory before that, and been riding for Euskaltel from the year 2000. A good domestique, but he is a hard worker. Always tries hard. Always does well in those one-week races like the Vuelta Burgos and the Vuelta Asturias. He's always there or thereabouts. There's a fairly large group with 4 kilometers still to go, still running down into Cuenca. It's not as easy as it looks, is it? It's not a straight run in, and we've got 3 kilometers, remember. They come in off this run down from the mountain. It jiggles about running into the center of Cuenca today, and then there's that big long left-hand swing at 1 kilometer. That is Luis Perez from Cofidis. There is Santi Botero joining the group as well, and along with him is Ruben Plata. Well, he's had to work hard, hasn't he? He looks like he's had to work hard as well, Sean. He looks got that look on his face. Well, I didn't fancy chasing all that down the hill, but he's had to get onto that group. That's a fairly substantial group. I haven't seen the gold jersey in there yet. I don't know about you.
Well, I just see a group there, and it showed Bradley McGee, but I'm not sure if it was that leading group. It looked to be, but it is quite a substantial group, and I would reckon McGee is in there because he's in good form at the moment. We see the way he rode on the first road stage up that climb, and he made a very good descent. So I reckon he definitely would be in this group.
This is an interesting situation, though. Paolo Bettini has now joined his teammate Juan Mercado at the front, along with Samuel Sanchez, and they are now running down 3 kilometers to go. They swing left in a minute, and then down the Piazza di Cuenca, through the Puerta de Valencia, down the De las Torres, and then at the Plaza de la Hispania, they swing left at 1 kilometer. Here's that left turn then. And that group, it must be about 35 strong now, maybe 40 strong, and there's a lot of action coming out of this now. And they're still running downhill, remember, and they run downhill very slightly all the way. This is going to be quite difficult. Is there any chance that the sprinters teams can latch onto the back of this in this short time now, Sean? I don't think there is at all.
No, I don't think we can see the gap at the moment there. There's nobody in sight, and at this moment, as you said, slightly downhill as we go to the 2 kilometers to go. Not possible for anybody really to come back into this group, and anybody have missed it, it's just over for them at the moment.
Well, one man who has missed this is Floyd Landis. Race Radio telling us now that Floyd Landis managed to get himself a puncture going through Cuenca the first time around. Remember, they went out on a loop from Cuenca, this very Gothic medieval city. We went up through the medieval streets, got a puncture on those cobblestones. He's been left behind on the climbing of Alto de Castillo. Back into Cuenca now. We're coming into about 2 kilometers or so to go, even less probably. All stringing out. This is going to be very, very interesting indeed. Who's your money on, Sean?
Well, I think Bettini, from what we've seen this group, but we haven't got a great shot of who else is in the group, so it's difficult to say. But Bettini has been very active to the front, but in a situation like this, it's always dangerous that somebody can just fly off in the last kilometre and just hold the group off.
And Bettini is the man who could do something. 1 kilometre to go then. They have swung round to the left. Now this is this long sweeping bend. And one of the Lampre riders has gone away at the front. I'm very sorry, we can't tell on earth who is who. Now look for the little gold helmet behind. You can see Joaquim Rodriguez in the yellow helmet and the climber's jersey there, being driven home by one of the quick-step riders. Is that Bonin? Do you know, I think that is. I think that is Tom Bonin on the front. It's got that big, thick-set jaw. Yes, it is Tom Bonin on the front. Uzoft is right behind him as well. There's Bradley McGee on the far left-hand side of your screen, just coming under the shot now. Brad McGee, first in line here. I think that's probably Samuel Sanchez again behind him. So McGee taking up the front. There's a relaxed rider just behind him. Paolo Bettini is fourth. Look out for Bettini. Here he comes. Uzoft is on his wheel. It's Bettini going for it for a long run. Uzoft's going to take this one, I think. It's Uzoft coming through. Oh, he's going to have to hang on to it. Don't get up too early. Oh, good victory by Tor Uzoft. Finally coming good, breaking the stranglehold of the Italian Alessandro Petacchi. Well, that was a very interesting run-in today. Strange stuff going on the Alto de Castillo. And only a couple of sprinters getting into the group there. A couple of the big-name sprinters at least. Tor Uzoft in there. Paolo Bettini is in there. You could class him as a sprinter in this sort of situation. He's got a very good turn of speed. Tom Bonin it was who's doing all that work. Now I wonder, Tom Bonin working for Paolo Bettini, Sean?
Yes, big surprise because with Hushov there, it was always going to be difficult for Bettini to take it, and major surprise when I see Bettini going in the front there. It should have been the other way around because unless Bonin, after making such an effort to stay in the climb, maybe he decided that he just had nothing left, so he decided just to give it everything for Bettini.
Maybe not a plan they talked about before, saying, well, I think this is probably your sort of sprint today. If I can stay with you and help you, I will. If not, this Sastres just coming over the line. Here's Bettini. Look, he's looking across it towards Uzov. If you've got Uzov next door to you, there's no way you're going to do that. Bradley McGee safe in gold. And making sure. Wearing 197 in the climber's jersey from Sonia Deval. Roberto Heras is in there as well. You can see Michele Scarponi, the Italian climber, right on his wheel. And Giampaolo Caruso, also another Italian climber, very handy indeed on his wheel. So Liberty Seguros playing along with the game, letting Comunidad Valenciana do all the work at the moment, and that's good for them, isn't it, Sean? Because they'll let the CV boys do as much work as possible, and then Baranovski in his particular place at the front. He was a real engine, a driving engine last year in the Vuelta for this man, Roberto Heras. Good place for Liberty Seguros to be at the moment.
Well, it's a perfect position to be in, you know, not have to take the race into their hands, and they don't have to, because the riders, they feel that's up the road, they're no danger in the general classement, so, you know, they weren't prepared to take up the chase, and we see the Comunidad Valenciano team taking it up quite a bit back, and they must be, you know, really going for the stage. As you said, you know, they have a number of riders who are capable of taking it, and for that reason I think the stage victory is the thing that they're thinking for this moment. Well,
we said that Floyd Landis was the big name who retired today. And talking to Jacques Michaud, the director sportif from Phonak, on the phone this morning, he told us here at Eurosport that it wasn't a physical problem really with Floyd Landis, although I have to say he's not in the best of shape. It's something to do, it's all in his head. He doesn't feel as though he's capable of it. He's up to it. Well, what do you think about that, Sean? Is that a little bit of bravado there? He didn't look in particularly good physical shape either. Remember, he had a crash a couple of days before in training, and he looked stiff during the first stage, the time trial. I'm sure a lot of it is in his head, but I don't think he was in top physical shape either.
No, certainly not. And as I said a little bit earlier, if he was in really good shape and had the bad luck he had yesterday, where, you know, when something happens like that at such a critical moment in the race, it's very easy to lose that time of 7.5 minutes, because you know, if you have a puncture, well, then you can get a team from a wheel from a teammate, and you can get away much quicker. But when you have to, you know, change a bike, and as we said, the bike wasn't the right size, a bit too big for him, he didn't feel comfortable on it at all. But I think if the physical shape was good, he would battle on and try and take a stage victory at least out of this race. And I think that, you know, the form wasn't good, and he's the only one who really knows that. And with him throwing in the towel quite later today, I think that answered that question.
Well, it wasn't too far from the finish, was it? The pass through Cuenca, when he had a problem with that rear derailleur. I mean, how much did Martin Elmiger's a really pretty stocky chap. Floyd Landis is not as big as Martin Elmiger. In fact, Elmiger is the guy who has sort of super strong bars on the bike and things like that, because he pulls the thing around all over the place. But how? I mean, if you were feeling in really good fighting spirit in your head, would you just stick on that bike right to the end?
Well, I think you have to stick on the bike at that time if it's any way at all possible, just to keep on riding on it. And I don't think they would have been that major difference in position in size, and he should have been able to battle on. But when you break your rear derailleur, it went into the spokes, we understand, and when that happened, well, you come to a standstill, and then you have to wait until a teammate come. And if the teammate is maybe 20 or 30 places further down the bunch, well, then you are standing there, and there's all those riders go by. Where if you have a flat tyre, where you can continue on riding on the flat for quite a while, I know you're going at a slower pace, but when a teammate comes up, then you get a wheel from him and he pushes you off, and you can lose a bit less time. And we see it yesterday, one of the riders, Vicioso, actually, he punctured, and he lost 3:38 yesterday, so he got away, and we see him, he lost quite a number of places, but got away quite quickly, got a wheel, and just limited his losses. So it was just the worst thing that could happen for Landis yesterday, to break that rear derailleur. And I think then the form not good as well. I think a combination of everything did not help the situation.
Well, I guess he was lucky not to have a serious injury. If somebody pushes the rear derailleur through your rear wheel and it just can lock your rear wheel solid, he could easily come off in those streets and bang yourself about a bit, but he didn't. So he was still upright when he managed to get Martin Elminger's bikes. So we understand. As you say, Sean, if you had a puncture, especially on the tubs they're using, the tubular tyres they're using, you could ride for quite a long way, can't you? Although they go down, they're still rideable. Phonak being supplied by Continental for their tubular tyres. They use tubulars for absolutely everything, including the time trials, and I have to say that they have a lot of trouble with their time trial tyres, because they use the ultra lightweight ones even in the rain, and that's why they get all the punctures. But on a tubular tyre, you could just ride on for quite a while, Sean.
Yes, you can, and when you get a flat, of course, if you can keep on riding on, as we see a lot of the time the riders do, and you can do it, you feel you're not losing as much time, but although there's still riders going by you. But when you have a mechanical problem, you come to a sudden stop, like what I reckon which happened with Landis yesterday, and you're just there for a number of seconds. It feels like minutes, because you can see all the riders going by, and that can work very, very heavily on your morale. And when you start going again, then it affects you. But I think the biggest one is if you're not in good shape and you start having problems, well, then it's difficult to continue on in the race.
Well, Eric Leblache, Jakob Pill and Benoit Joachim doing a sterling job at the front. They're holding this gap at about 4 minutes, despite the combined efforts of all the Comunidad Valenciana team. And this man just trying to keep himself in with the bunch at the moment. Bradley McGee, wearing the gold leaders jersey of this year's Vuelta a España at the moment. There is Oscar Sevilla wearing 211, the Telecom rider, T-Mobile should I say these days. And still Sevilla driving it on. Liberty Seguros not so far to the front as they were, but Comunidad Valenciana will have to, I don't know whether they've just slackened off the pace a little bit, or the guys up the front are just keeping a decent pace. They don't look as though they've slackened off anything at all from here, Sean.
No, but I think our breakaway, the original six-man breakaway, we see there was, they weren't working very well together for a while, and then there was a number of attacks, and with the three riders going away, I think they are working very well out front now. So I think that's having the effect of their holding this advantage now around the 4 minutes, and it looked like that they were going to be closed down, but now again, if they can hold this 4 minutes for a while, I think it will be difficult maybe for the bunch to close it down, depending on what happened, of course, on the final climb of 9 or 10 kilometres to the finish. If they start attacking very, very early, and a lot of the big favourites start attacking each other, well, then this advantage would come down very, very quickly over that 9 kilometres. So it depends on what exactly happened behind, if those riders can hold on to the finish.
Benoit Joachim for Discovery, the Luxembourger, Eric Leblache, the rider from Credit Agricole, the Frenchman, rode in the Tour de France, had a reasonable Tour de France, got in a couple of breaks. Seems to specialise in placing himself in breaks. And Jakob Piel, one of, certainly a couple of years ago, was one of the real strong men of CSC, along with Jens Vogt. In fact, I think it was Jakob Piel and Jens Vogt that kept trying to outdo each other for Breakaways 2 years ago. Not this year in the Tour de France, but Jakob Piel would go one day, and then Jens Vogt would go the other day. But Piel has had some injury problems, and nice to see him back on the rise again. So Peel taking the points at the top of this second category climb from Benoit Joachim and Eric Lablache. And you can bet your bottom dollar it'll be somebody just... I'm not so sure that Joaquim Rodriguez won't just nip out as he comes up to the top of the mountain. Still 3 points or more available, 3 points or less, should I say, available as they go over the top of this second category climb. 10, 7, 5, 3, 2 and 1 available. But if we look back at the peloton or the main bunch, Joaquim Rodriguez just sitting behind the Comunicat Valenciana guys, and I'm sure he'll nip out and take a few more points. Inside of 13 kilometers to go to Val d'Elinares. The first time we've been up to the ski station at the top of this road. Eric Lablache, kabang! Straight in. Well, a good job they had those padded blocks there. Lablache just losing it on the descent, coming around these dusty, nasty, slightly potholed roads. Lablache just tumbling off and onto those padded areas. There we go, here we go, running a little bit wide, locks up something. Well, he locks up the back wheel, skids sideways, and away he goes. Not what he wants, hopefully not too badly hurt. He'll try and get back on the tail end of those two, Benoit Joachim and Jakob Peel. That's not very nice. Good job they put that stuff there, Sean.
Yes, it certainly was, and good job there was a slip road for Joachim as well, because he went down the right on the right hand side, as we see McGee here.
Oh dear, Bradley McGee off the back now, and that is the end, I would suggest, of his tenure of the gold jersey, because this is the second to last climb of the day, and they've still got a first category climb to come. And if he's struggling and off the back here, that's goodbye to the gold jersey for him. He's got to get back onto the back of this group, but if he can't climb up that one, I think he'll have trouble on the next one, Sean.
Yes, certainly. I think if he's losing contact here on the final climb, because they've been riding, you know, a steady pace. The pace is quite high, but has been pretty steady. And on the final climb, I don't think he's going to have that, because there's going to be more of attacks in the main bunch. And when you lose contact like this, of course, as well, you know, the morale drops a bit, and it's going to be majorly difficult for him to limit his losses and stay with the big favourites on this final climb.
Well, you can see the physical gap between Jakob Peel at the front, Benoit Joachim, and then there's Eric Lablache trying to catch up again. At the bottom, you can see Bradley McGee. He's a demon descender. He's a really, really quick descender, and he's going to try and catch up with the other guys. I'm pretty certain he could do so. We already passed some of the breakaway riders. Nacho Burgos was passed by the main bunch. Just look at that spectacular scenery at the bottom right. Well, there we go. It's off the road, off your screen now. Sorry. Oh dear. It's that cameraman again. Right. Jakob Peel under the 10 to go banner, I think that was. And out by himself now due to that unexpected 9 kilometers to go. Sorry, unexpected tumble by Eric Lablache. I wonder if somebody came a cropper there already. So very straight. They managed to put that in exactly the right place, those padded blocks.
Yes, well, I think it was a little bit tighter than the riders, you know, had calculated for, and we see Lablache here. He tried to, you know, make it round. And I think on the brake as well, a little bit too heavy rear brake, and it just, you know, slid his back wheel out. And but certainly it must have been a danger point, because when the blocks were there, well, that tells you that, you know, the organisation decided and see that it could be a danger one.
3:18 back to the peloton, and it's now being shared, the work between, or they're just dragging people down the hill. It's one of the Les Balears riders. You can see Joaquim Rodriguez, though, 3 back, the sort of explosive climber that I would expect to be able to do something today. Oh, I wonder who else is going to come a cropper there. The Les Balears rider only just made it round. Brad McGee makes contact with the back of this group. That's a good bit of descending. Very good descending indeed by the Australian. We saw him on stage 3, really getting it together. Was it stage 4? Stage 4, really getting it together with, no, it wasn't. I should get it right in a minute. Stage 2 with Bertognoli, and descending very, very fast and catching the back of him. He's a demon descender.
but the effort you've got to make, to bridge that gap, it takes that bit out of you as well. So for him it's going to be majorly difficult on the final climb. Surprisingly, like, there's no teammate with him. That you would expect a teammate to be in this bunch, and that tells you that the Français de Jeu, they're suffering quite a lot, because if there was anybody there at all, they would be holding back with McGee. So that tells you they're all out in the further back the road in the other groups.
Jacob Piel still by himself. Benoit Joachim had to try and catch him. That's going to be very, very difficult now, because there's hardly any gap between the end of the last climb and the beginning of this one, something less than 2 kilometers. So if you've taken a bit of a tumble, and trying to catch up is very difficult indeed. Darius Baranovsky, the pole, on the front now for Roberto Heras' Liberty Seguros team, and Bradley McGee already being dropped, and this is the very, very lower slopes of this hill. Leader on the general, as it says there, as you could see. Bradley McGee really suffering today, managed to make it back to the group, but immediately dropped, even on the very lowest of the slopes, the slope of this finish today at Valdenares. 3 minutes and 12 seconds, the gap up to Piel. That's quite a big ask, but this man's a real steam engine, isn't he, Darius Baranovsky? He can really drive things along. We saw it in the Vuelta last year. He did it over and over again, day after day after day, for Roberto Heras. 9 kilometers to go then for the main group. And 3 minutes between themselves and Jacob Piel. Is Jacob Piel coming back into form? Is he strong enough to stay away at this point, Sean?
Well, I would be concerned when you see Baranovsky, setting the pace and blistering pace on the front of the bunch. You can see the way the bunch is all lined out and gaps appearing, as we see just up ahead, and that tells you the pace is, very, very fast. So it's going to be difficult for Piel to stay out there. And with the crash on the descent with Le Blacher coming down and Joachim losing a bit of time, it's not helping up front. If they had stayed together and maybe walked a bit more to get onto the final climb, it would help a little bit. So Piel has been out there that little bit longer now, and if we see some attacks out of this bunch shortly, I think it's going to come down very, very quick, this gap of just a fraction over 3 minutes.
Well, Piel has had a big victory before in a Grand Tour. He won stage 10 in the Tour de France way back in 2003, now into Marseille. Been with CSC 5 years now, and before we started his career way back in 1997. But look at the way this bunch is now splitting up under the pressure being exerted by Baranovsky at the front, and it'll be a test of who's getting into good form. We noticed, funnily enough, that in the breakaway group of 30 or so riders earlier on, Joseba Belocchi was in there, so he's obviously feeling in reasonable shape. Belocchi, we've said, has been riding into good form over the last few months, but Baranovsky really driving it along there. Expect Sonia Deval to be in there as well. With 8 kilometers to go, they want to protect the mountains classification journey of Joaquim Rodriguez. Well, one climber who's no longer Oscar Pereiro, but there he is, has had one tumble already, along with the two Gutierrez boys from Fonac. Ivan and Jose Enrique Gutierrez both went over the Armco barrier. One went over the Armco barrier, and so did Oscar Pereiro. And everything got very mixed up. 3 of them hit the deck. Andreas Clear as well went down on stage 2. Baranovsky giving it absolutely everything and really, really stretching them out. Look at this, Paolo Bettini. It's enough for me, he says. That is some tremendous pace that Baranovsky is setting up at the front. Really, really difficult stuff. Bingen Fernandez, not too bad a climber himself, right at the back, just in front of Paolo Bettini as well. That's Aitor Otha on the right-hand side for Illes Baleares. You can see Roberto Heras is just behind Baranovsky. You'd expect Isadro Nothal to be up here. I can't see him at the moment, unless that's Nothal in second place. I don't think it is. I think it's Gianpaolo Caruso. Angel Casero, though, he's the local guy, lives very close to the bottom of this slope, but having real trouble This is a blistering pace, Sean. You can see the mountains classification leader just here. Joaquim Rodriguez is just back from these guys. I think the far left-hand side, the Euskaltel guy. And if it is the Euskaltel, it might even be Rabobank. I'm not even sure. I can't quite see around the corner.
And surprising to see the Liberty guys, setting the pace, a blistering pace, quite a number of kilometres down the road here. I wouldn't have forecasted that because early days in this race yet, and with a rider like Heras going for the victory, I think a lot of work further down the road for those riders, and surprising to see them doing it so early, as we see Balocki there on the front. It's a surprising one to see him take it up so early in the race. They haven't got the race leader jersey. They don't need it for the moment. So I would have expected them just to stay and take it a little bit easier.
Oh, this is bad news for Euskaltel. Look, Aitor Gonzalez, winner of the Tour of Romandie, good rider. Or Tour de Suisse, I think it was. I get them mixed up. One was won by Santiago Botero, the other by Aitor Gonzalez. Gonzalez off the back already, and huge amount of work coming in at the front. That's Denis Menchov, by the way, at the front in the orange. He is wearing the combination jersey in the colours of Rabobank, and Jakob Pil still out by himself. 6 kilometres to go, but I'm sure this is going to get eaten up by the Liberty guys now. 2:25. It's not coming down super fast, but he's going to have to work very, very hard to stay away from the sort of pace being set by Liberty Seguros on the front here.
Yes, I don't think it's going to be enough because Pil, of course, a very strong rider, and he won some good stages. As I said, won a stage into Marseille, but of course a flat stage, and this sort of finish is not his cup of tea at all. He, would not be a specialist at this by a long shot. So for him to hold off that advantage, I don't think he's going to be able to hold on here.
Well, this man was one of the men tipped by Angel Casero to win today, Leonardo Piepoli. He has been distanced already by this train that has started to drag Roberto Heras up to the top. There's a very select group coming out of this. We've seen this so often, haven't we, in the Grand Tours. This reminds me of the sort of thing we were seeing in the Giro this year. We were just shedding people bit by bit by bit. And we certainly had this in the Vuelta last year with Liberty Seguros taking up all the running on the front, and just a very, very few select people still in this group. And remember, this is a first category climb. It's a tough one, but it flattens out the middle, as you can see, but then kicks up again to 8%. It's just a speed climb, this, Sean.
Yes, it's not a majorly steep climb, as we said, 8%, and then it goes down to 5% in places. So not the most difficult climb for those sort of riders, and especially for the specialist climbers. They can cope with much more difficult climbs. It's early in the race as well, of course, and for those riders that little bit fresher. But the Liberty Seguros are really putting up a blistering pace here, as we see the group. About 25 riders, 30 riders here, and everybody going out there, everybody else out the rear door. It's something which early days for them to be doing that, because as I said just a while ago, they don't have the race leader jersey, and they don't need the race leader jersey for the moment, and they're not in contention. I don't think they should not really want to take it this moment, but still setting that blistering pace here, it's a surprise for me today.
Really, really fast pace. Now, wait till you see a helicopter shot of the lead riders. You saw one briefly while Sean was chatting there, and that will show you exactly how fast these guys are going. Oscar Sevilla just passing Joaquim Rodriguez, and just trying to tack onto the back of these guys, and the hurt is really coming on Francisco Mancebo in there, so he's nice and safe at the moment. You can see Luis Perez is the Cofidis rider at the back. There's Joaquim Rodriguez in the Mountains classification jersey. Carlos Garcia Quesada is the Comunica Valenciana rider in there. Manuel Beltran looks like he's had a bit of a tumble. Now, that doesn't come over race radio at all, but he's been distanced from this select group. He's trying to fight his way back. I think he might even get onto the back of it. There is Mancebo. Jakob Pil beginning to suffer big time at the front here, Sean, with 5 kilometers to go, and these guys are coming up behind Eric Lablache now. There's Carlos Sastre, the CSC rider, just tucking in behind Denis Menchov. Then Oscar Sevilla. And then Mancebo, so easily identifiable by the way his head lolls sideways. Do you know, Mancebo always looks as though he's in tremendous pain. Whatever he's doing, it doesn't make any difference what he's riding at. As soon as he gets in a group and starts to put the pressure down. Oh, Joaquim Rodriguez was one of my choices for perhaps doing something today. He is now being distanced. Marcos Serrano has done his job on the front. Look at the pace the rest of them are going. Joaquim Rodriguez can't stay with this sort of pace. He's an explosive little character, but when it's just grind, and they're going so quickly, very difficult stuff indeed. Two of the Comunidad Valenciana riders in this, a very select group, and also Juan Miguel Mercado, we said yesterday had a little bit of a contretemps with his quick-step managers. He's gone on the attack up here today. Now, you probably would expect that. He's a good climber.
Yes, and we heard that in the quick-step camp there was a lot of talk last night because of the way things panned out in the end. But of course he's leaving the team at the end of the year, and he seemed to be riding his own race, and yesterday that seemed to be the opinion of the director of the quick-step team, and it looked very like that's what we see on our screen. So again, you know, he's probably looking for a contract. I don't think he has signed a contract from what I've heard for the moment. So definitely, you know, trying to put up a show here and to, you know, find himself a contracted team for next year.
David Blanco is the second of the Comunidad Valenciana riders. He's wearing 43, just in front of Garcia Quesada, and the pace is beginning to tell on some very, very talented people indeed. Oscar Sarvilla gone. That is it, out the back. And I think Francisco Mancebo is on the back end. He's beginning to suffer as well. Ooh, he looks like he's suffering, but he is on the back of this little group and really feeling the pressure. I tell you, somebody who is climbing very well indeed is Denis Menchov, right up the front. Good riding by the Russian. He's in great form, isn't he, Sean? He won the opening time trial against much expectation, his own included, and now climbing with the best of them. Remember, he won here back in 2004. He knows this climb. He won in the Tour of Aragon here in 2004. Good riding by Denis Menchov. Sean, very impressive. He's ridden himself into exactly the right form.
Yes, certainly is, and you know, not having a great tour at all by a long shot, and you know, seem to have come into this race having a very good prologue, but seem to be very, very comfortable, as I said here.
Well, with 5 kilometers to go, it's flattened out a little. Well, just under 5 kilometers to go. This is a 5% gradient here. It's a little bit flatter, and then it's going to kick up again to 8%. And Francisco Mancebo, I think, is suffering on the back here, Sean. He's hanging in there rather than actually riding up towards the front as we saw him in the Tour de France. One tour too many, do you think?
Well, it's difficult to know at Manchego. As we said in the Tour, he always seems to be hanging, and he always, you know, has that suffering on his face, and you know, you just never know, you know, when he is really suffering because of his style of riding. But I would not be surprised, you know, in this group that he's just staying down the back there, because it's got so small now, and it's not going to make a great odds if you're sitting in third or fourth position or sitting in 8th position. So I'd not be majorly concerned that sitting in this place that is giving us the idea that he is, you know, really suffering at the moment.
You just can't tell with Mancebo. I love watching Mancebo ride, because I have to say he looks the most tortured of the major contenders. It doesn't matter what he's doing. As soon as he gets to the hills, he gets that hunchback look about him, and his head lolls to the left-hand side, and he just looks at absolute torture. He looks about 45 years old, and when you see him normally at the team presentations or anything, he looks in pretty good shape normally. Michele Scarponi is the rider on the front, a very talented rider indeed. Came from an Italian team. Domino Vacanza, I think, was the previous team that he was in. Anyway, he was with, was it Domino Vacanza? I can't remember. But he came to Liberty Seguros, and leading Roberto Heras, his team leader, up this slope very nicely indeed. Heras looking in reasonable shape, looking comfortable. Denis Menchov looking extremely comfortable. Carlos Sastre, we haven't seen many shots of him. Juan Manuel Mercado, David Blanco, Garcia Quesada, and the ever-tortured Francisco Mancebo at the back. Well, Jakob Pil's now starting to look over his shoulder to see how far he's got to go. 1 minute and 7 seconds with 3 kilometers to go. It's going to be pretty close. At 6 kilometers, they were just 2 minutes down on him. Now they are 1 minute down on him with 3 kilometers to go. It's going to be quite a tight finish, Sean.
Yes, it certainly is, and you know, he's battling on there quite well, but it's going to be really difficult for him to hold off there, because you know, this pace being set by Scarponi is still, you know, quite a strong pace, and of course Pil, he's going to be tiring. He's out there for a long time. He's after making a huge effort all the way up this climb, and I think it's going to be, you know, very, very difficult for him just to hold on.
I suppose what is in his favour is that they come through the steepest, or one of the steepest parts of this climb, and they're just about doing it now, 8% as they come in within 3 kilometers. This is a nasty little climb here, and again the pressure being put on at the front by Liberty Seguros, and this time it's Roberto Heras who's taken up the cudgel. Denis Menchov with him. And then it's David Blanco, I think. No, it's not. It's Garcia Quesada just behind that, and it looks like Carlos Sastre is blown. Sastre is blown. Mancebo is blown. It's Heras and Menchov by themselves, and Garcia Quesada is going to go past his teammate David Blanco and try and catch these two. These two, as we just said, are looking the most comfortable, and there's nobody else with them at all at the moment. Will they catch Jakob Pil is the question. Well, I think that's Carlos Garcia Quesada who's got across to them. Look at that, Carlos Sastre blown out of the back already. Remember, this is the first big climb of this year's Vuelta a España. 3 riders at the front, then the top right hand corner of your screen. Roberto Heras really turning on the pressure. Carlos Garcia Quesada, a very good rider, is in there as well. He's sitting in second for Comunicat Valenciana, and then Denis Menchov looking, I have to say, pretty cool. I think it's going to come down between Menchov and Heras if they reach Jakob Pil, Sean. They're looking very cool, these two.
Yes, they're certainly looking quite comfortable. Menchov seems, you know, to be very comfortable here, and you know, just sitting in the good position, following Heras, leave him do all the pulling at the front. So it's certainly throwing up a lot of surprises here, and we see a lot, you know, a lot of riders who will be expecting to, you know, stay in this front group today, not able to stick with the pace being set by Liberty Seguros, which has been a really blistering pace from the bottom of this climb, and Heras definitely, you know, taking on you know, what the rest of the team set out to do to really make this one difficult for everybody, and taking up the pace just a number of kilometers from the finish.
Well, terrific riding by Comunicat Valenciana. They've split it down bit by bit by bit. Then Darius Baranovsky, oh, they're going to catch Jakob Pil. There he is ahead of them. That just shows how quickly these three riders are going compared to Pil. I know he's tiring, but he's a strong boy. He had a minute with 3 kilometers to go. It's now Roberto Heras and Denis Menchov. It's going to come down to those two. Garcia Quesada is one who've had 5 victories so far this year for Comunicat Valenciana, but today is not going to be one of them, because with 2 kilometers to go, they've eaten a minute out of Jakob Pil in 1 kilometer. It's down to these two now. The big strong man from Russia knows a lot about Spanish racing, has raced the Tour of the Basque Country, Tour of Burgos, and Roberto Heras really putting his marker down early. That's ever so surprising, isn't it, Sean? He's come into form. He wants to win a 4th Vuelta, but he's done it at the first possible opportunity. He's laid down the marker saying, I am here and in form.
Yes, and not only Heras himself, but the whole team, as I mentioned earlier on, you know, taking it up today. Surprising to do that so early in the race, and I would be a little bit concerned as we go further into the race that the team, you know, doesn't pay for this effort, because we must look back at what they've been through the last number of days. Very warm weather, long stages, and you know, still 2.5 weeks to go in this race. A little bit less, but a lot of, you know, very difficult roads to be travelled over, big mountains to be climbed. And the team could have a lot of work to do in the last week of the race, and I'd be just concerned that they might pay for, you know, setting out too early and giving it too much in the first week of the race.
Well, we saw the whole team doing the work on the front to try and string it all out and launch their man Roberto Heras towards the top. Very reminiscent of his time at US Postal. He's developed a similar sort of technique of getting a lot of guys to ride very hard on the front. Darius Baranovsky, the Pole, is the real powerhouse of them, but there's some great climbers in there. We didn't see much of Isadro Nothal, but Gianpaolo Caruso was in there. Michele Scarponi, the last man left standing. Marco Serrano did his bit as well. Even Angel Vicchioso did his bit. Oh, David Blanco still tapping away, has gone past Carlos Garcia Quesada now. Ah, it's that time again. People running alongside time. And the first of the mountaintop crowds coming out.
And Menchov is cracking.
Oh, Menchov has gone. He can't stay. He's just put a huge injection of pace in Roberto Heras. That's quite extraordinary. Where did that come from, Sean?
Yes, very surprising, because Menchov looked to be very comfortable there. He seemed to be in the wheel, you know, did not seem to be suffering majorly at all, but just suddenly there just hits him. And I think you know, Heras just turned up the gas that little bit extra, and we see the way he's just going away from so quickly. Heras, you know, really strong and very, very impressive on this first mountaintop finish of the Tour of Spain.
He looks absolutely amazing. Look at this. Really, really good riding by Roberto Heras. It's 1 kilometer to go, and he shed every other major threat. Everybody was down the road. Some of the very early climbers who went. Leonardo Piepoli went out the door really quickly. Aitor Gonzalez, much touted as a potential victor, and certainly one of my favorite riders for this year's Vuelta a España, out the back door. Francisco Mancebo off the back, Oscar Sevilla off the back. It flattens out at the top of this climb now. It's a pretty much flat run in all the way. Here he goes. He's going to take victory today. Roberto Heras, the first time we visited Aramon Valdenares, this ski station popular in Aragon. This looks like Palo Alto, doesn't it? The finish of Palo Alto, except without the fog. Denis Menchov can maybe drag back a little bit of time. He's a quicker man over a flat distance, but he looks pretty cooked to me. He's giving it absolutely everything. He doesn't want to lose that much time. He's ahead of Roberto Heras on GC. But Roberto Heras is going to take victory today. A wonderful, wonderful ride by the three-time Vuelta champion. Going for a fourth. He wants to beat that target of Tony Rominger, although he says it isn't a stated aim. He'd love to do it. Powering his way up today and shedding every major opponent on the way. And remember, this is only the first climb. Well, we hope and pray he hasn't given it everything too much too early, but he's very, very happy with that. Victory today for Roberto Heras. Limiting his losses, Denis Menchov, who looked so comfortable until about 1.5 kilometers from the end. Menchov loses 12 seconds to Roberto Heras, and the stopwatch is on to see where everybody else is coming. Here comes David Blanco. Blanco coming in 27 seconds down on the winner, Roberto Heras. This is Carlos Garcia Quesada. And still the stopwatch is on the major protagonist. Who's going to be the next big name to come home? Juan Miguel Mercado is in there. Here is Francisco Mancebo. Let me just stop the watch with Mancebo and Sastre. It's 33 seconds that they have lost today. Jakob Pil coming over the line. 33 seconds lost to Roberto Heras.
And of course the difference between Menchov and Heras in the general classement, Menchov had an advantage of 15 seconds over Heras, and as we see that he came over 12 seconds down, so he will still stay ahead of him in the general classement. It depends now, you know, what the other riders will lose, the ones further up the general classement.
Well, certainly Carlos Sastre has lost his place. Roberto Heras leapfrogs over the top of him. Here come some of the other big riders. Is that Gilberto Simoni on the far right-hand side? I think it probably is. Simoni. Jouffre coming over, who had an attack yesterday. There's Oscar Sevilla and Luis Perez from Cofidis. Losing well over 1.5 minutes on Roberto Heras. Here, Glablache, who's in the break for such a long time. And this is Samuel is it Leiseca or Sanchez? I think that's Samuel Sanchez, actually.
Yes, they look very much alike.
They do indeed.
Ardilla.
Ardilla, the little Colombian. Fuentes is the Lampre rider on the far right-hand side. And that is Christian van der Velde, I think, coming over the line. Really strung out, and everybody trying to limit their losses big style today. I thought Osa is the Illes Baleares rider, leading this little bunch over the line now from Bingen Fernandez, the Cofidis rider. Here is Roberto Heras once again. Well, Sean, if every wanted to lay down a marker to everybody, is he just trying to put the frighteners on people?
Well, he's definitely laid on the marker, and very early in the race, the first opportunity, just they really hit it, big time, and just blows the race apart. And Heras, finishes off extraordinarily powerful looking there on that final climb. And we see the way the riders are coming in; they're all coming in threes and fours. So really blew the race